Okay, Victor Blackwell is joining me now along with criminal defense attorney Pate. Thanks to both of you for coming in this morning to discuss this. Victor, let's start with you because I know you were inside the courtroom. So many people around the country had their eyes glued to the television since we were streaming a lot of that here on CNN. What was it like there in the courtroom?
Well, first, it was packed. I mean, a lot of those people were supporters of the Harrises. We know that their church is just across the street. When we walked in, there were people saving seats, climbing over some of the benches, trying to get everybody packed in. We saw that it was standing room only. Expected to go 90 minutes. It lasted just over 3 hours and no one moved. There were some moments of punctuation, and I know Paige is going to talk about these. When we heard the defense attorney ask the investigator, would it surprise you to know that Justin Ross Harris is deaf in his right ear? Everybody perked up because maybe only his wife and his very close friends knew that. And if you think he's in the driver's seat there, is it possible that he did not hear his son right next to him?
And so many of the details as far as the allegations against Harris were so jaw-dropping and a lot of people's ears perked up. Paige, let me turn to you. We heard from some of those character witnesses on stand there talking about this man and the man they knew, and they say so much of what they're hearing from this detective goes against what they know of this man. They talked about sort of a split personality or a double life. Your thoughts on that?
And that's what's important to remember here. It is easy to listen to this very damaging evidence and say, let's close the book, he's guilty, it's over with. This was not a trial. This was simply a probable cause hearing. The state gets to run the show. They have put up their best evidence. It went much longer than these hearings normally go. I think they overdid it for probable cause, but their point was to try to get the judge to deny bond, and that worked. What we now have to see is, does the defense have a defense? Can they come up with reasonable explanations as to why he did these searches, as to why he said what he said? That's what I'm looking for now. The defense will now have an opportunity to investigate the case and try to come up with a defense if they can.
And Kilgore makes a strong point when he asks, what do these searches have to do with the intent? Although, you know, I don't think anybody went there expecting all of what we learned about this sexting with these women during that day. But does that indeed show that he intended to leave his child in the car? We'll find out what the case is. We know that there have been 8 more search warrants released just within the last hour. What we learned from them, in addition to just reinforcing what we heard yesterday, was that not only were these 2 life insurance policies, one for $2,000, one for $25,000, but according to the investigators, Ross Harris started to ask relatives questions about how to file for those, how to get that money after Cooper's death.
Well, I want to play some sound from just this morning. We heard from a friend of Justin Ross Harris. Let's play that.
Before this tragedy, I had never heard anyone say a bad thing about him. He was just an overall great guy.
So I can imagine you were probably quite surprised when you heard the news. Tell me about the day you found out about this.
I was scrolling through Facebook and I saw people that I know posting about it. We were all in shock because we all knew him. It's just still a disbelief, not knowing what to think.
So much focus has been on who this man is, and it seems like that's what the prosecutor is really targeting in their attack of Harris. How do you defend against what they are accusing him of? The sexting, the strange internet searches, the life insurance policies.
Well, Victor's right about the sexting. That may actually be a separate crime, but it is not killing your child. The two are completely separate. Obviously, the prosecutor said, I'm going to put this evidence up because, number one, I want to convince this judge, Judge Cox, to deny him bond. I want him to stay in jail. And number two, I want to go ahead and start turning public opinion against him. I'm going to quash these online petitions. I'm going to make sure that whatever character witnesses he may bring to the next court hearing, they're going to think twice before they stand up for this guy. And it was effective.
And we know his wife was defending him prior to this hearing.
And I'm real interested to see if she's going to be charged. We heard some evidence come out during the hearing that she may have known about this. And if she did, even if she wasn't the one that left him in the car, she could also be charged with felony murder as a party to the crime.
I'm curious to hear what she was like in court.
You know, the only moment I saw that she showed any emotion, that she really teared up, was when some of the character witnesses described how much Ross Harris loved Cooper. And that's, you know, when we heard, we saw rather, Ross Harris wipe tears from his own eyes 3 times, but only when they talked about the response that day, his screaming there in the parking lot, but also when his friends said how much he loved this little boy, how much he loved to show him off. but also about the mother here. There was that moment in which the detective described their being together in this room with a double mirror. And he says that it's recorded that she says, Mom says to Dad, "Did you say too much?" And that was a moment at which people perked up. Now, there was no audible gasp. There were gasp-inducing moments. However, people started to kind of look around at one another. And this is a room filled with media types, of course, but also their supporters. We'll see how many of those supporters continue to show up at these hearings.
It's strange to me that there wasn't more emotion from the parents of this little boy, especially if their defense is this was a total accident. I'm a parent, and it makes me sick to my stomach to even think about something like this happening to my child.
I hear that, and I heard the officer testify that he was surprised by his reaction. But is that really fair? Can any of us say what a parent should act like when their child has just died? I mean, unless you've been through that, I don't know if the detective can really say, I know how he should have acted, and he didn't act that way. So I don't know that that was fair.
Okay, we have to go, but real quick, what's next?
Well, what's next? We know that this now goes to trial. We'll continue to get more information about what the investigators believe from the release of these search warrants. Again, we received 8 more today, and we know the investigation into the computers and the phones and the laptops, that will continue. We'll learn about the narrative they're building.
Yeah, more evidence to come. Paige Pate, Victor Blackwell, thanks to you both.